On the 8th of March 2022, the authorities announced they arrested and charged a man in the 1994 cold case murder of 39-year-old Cheri Huss. Events unfolded on the 23rd of April 1994, when Cheri, a divorced mother of 3, lived alone in an apartment complex located in the 12,900 block of Palmer Drive in Desert Hot Springs, California, while her children lived with her father. At around 10 p.m. at night, Cheri spoke to her parents on the phone. She told them that someone had been taking photos of her. She said someone kept ringing her and hanging up as she answered the phone. At around 9:30 a.m. the following morning, her parents went to her apartment to check up on her, and when they entered her residence, they made a horrifying discovery. They found Cheri's lifeless and partially disrobed body laying on the floor. She had been stabbed multiple times, and she'd also been bitten by a killer. There were signs of a struggle as she attempted to fight back, causing the attacker's blood to be spilled. The authorities were contacted and collected evidence from the crime scene. Forensic testing determined that the blood to be from a male, which matched the DNA of the saliva left behind in the bite marks on Cheri's body. However, attempts to find a match on the suspect's DNA profile to the CODIS DNA database were unsuccessful, and Cheri's case went cold. In February of 2022, the authorities started using forensic genetic genealogy, where they matched DNA collected from the crime scenes to relatives of the suspect who've uploaded their DNA to public ancestry databases. Family trees were developed, and from there they were able to narrow their search down to 48-year-old Sharon Eugene Gadlin as a person of interest. Detectives discovered that Sharon lived in Thousand Palms in 1994, which is about 12 miles from where Cheri lived. On the 14th of February, the authorities obtained a warrant to collect a DNA sample from Sharon. They went to his home and collected a mouth swab from him. On the 18th of February, the investigators confirmed that Sharon's DNA matched the DNA profile associated with the saliva found in the bite marks. On the evening of the 4th of March, the authorities pulled Sharon's car over at the intersection of West 135th Street and Western Avenue in Gardiner and arrested him. He's held at the Riverside Southwest Detention Centre with bail set at $1 million. The authorities have not indicated the motive of the attack or whether Cheri and Sharon knew each other. On the 28th of February 2022, the authorities charged a man with a decade-old cold case fatal bashing of 24-year-old Allison Southerland-Craine. The events unfolded at around 8:40 p.m. on the 7th of August 2009, when a married couple were looking for wildlife near Lakeside Road in Greenville, South Carolina. While exploring the area, they stumbled across Allison's lifeless and disrobed body, partially submerged in the shallow water of a creek under a bridge. The authorities were contacted and collected evidence from the crime scene. They believe she had been there for a little while, without pinpointing the exact time of death. An autopsy determined that Allison died from multiple blunt force trauma injuries. Following the initial investigation, the case went cold due to a lack of leads. In August of 2020, the Greenville Police Department established a cold case unit to re-examine the case. During the investigation, they were able to link a 38-year-old man named Jeffrey Ray Phillips to the killing after locating cell phone records and evidence of a financial dispute. Detectives said they learnt that Jeffrey was a frequent cab driver for Allison, and before her murder she expressed frustration that he owed her money. On the 28th of February 2022, the investigators obtained a murder warrant on Jeffrey, who was also being held without bail at the Sullivan County Detention Center in Tennessee for an unrelated murder case, which he is still awaiting trial. In that case, the authorities initially responded to a call of a suspected prowler at 10 p.m. on the 5th of August 2017 at a mobile home park located at 4573 Bluff City Highway in Bluff City, Tennessee. When officers arrived, they found the lifeless body of 28-year-old Timothy Glenn France, who was Jeffrey's roommate, in a wooded area just yards behind the mobile home they shared. Police also found blood on a large rock, a sink pedestal, a garden hoe and other tools which appeared to be used in Timothy's death. He suffered severe blunt force trauma to his head and 2 wounds to his back, one being a stab wound. His legs were tied together with a towel, which looked to be used to drag his body away. Jeffrey stepped out of the home just wearing a bath towel and denied any knowledge of Timothy's death to the investigating officers. He said he had to go back inside to prepare for work, then stepped out of the residence again. Officers noticed blood on his shoes and fresh scratches on his hands. When Jeffrey let them search the home, they found a bloody shed on the living room floor and blood in the bathroom. Jeffrey was arrested and questioned. He told the police that he was mad at Timothy for giving meth to his girlfriend. He said he then lured Timothy outside, saying that he needed help taking down a hammock. He said he remembered punching him in the face, but claimed to have blacked out from anger and could not remember anything else. On the 9th of March 2022, the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office announced they solved the 1995 cold case murder of a homeless woman. It all began on the 25th of August 1995, after the authorities were contacted when a passerby discovered a lifeless body of a woman found in a ditch along the 15,000 block of Peacock Hill Road in South Kitsap, Washington. When officers arrived, they found a woman who had been shot twice in the head. All of her clothing had been removed, and she was partially covered by a sleeping bag. Pin curlers and a cigarette butt were found near her body. Around 130 pieces of evidence were collected at the crime scene, but her clothes were never recovered. The woman was identified as 61-year-old Patricia Lorraine Barnes, and it was determined that she died from multiple gunshot wounds to the head, and her death was ruled a homicide. During the investigation, detectives learned that Patricia lived in various homeless shelters in Pioneer Square, Seattle, and was known as the Towel Lady because she would often wear a towel or a bandana around her head. Just before Patricia was murdered, a man saw her in downtown Seattle with a white man aged between 30 to 35. They both told the witness that they planned to eat at Courthouse Park and then go to Federal Way. Detectives published an artist's drawing of a person of interest last seen with Patricia, but no suspects were identified from it and the case went cold. The case was reopened in 2018, and detectives later submitted physical evidence to state and private crime labs for testing, which included DNA specialist company Othram Labs. Othram used advanced forensic genealogy processes, which included searching ancestry databases for relatives of the unknown suspect, and they came up with a potential name. On the 7th of February 2022, the authorities concluded that Douglas Keith Crone was Patricia's killer. His DNA was found on her body. It was on the sleeping bag and on the cigarette butt left at the crime scene. The sketch drawn from the witness account in 1995 also looked like him. He would have been 33 at the time of the murder. Douglas lived in Seattle and Tacoma around 1995. He has a long criminal history in Western Washington, including 5 felony convictions and a kidnapping arrest in 1994. Douglas won't be facing justice, as he died in an accident in 2016 in Nogales, Arizona. The relationship between Patricia and Douglas and how they came to meet is unknown. It's suspected it was a complete random encounter. Douglas's DNA has been put into the CODIS DNA database to check to see if he's connected to any other cases,